I'm Holly and welcome to my channel, Holly Go Read. Today we're going to be talking about the books I read for Hispanic Heritage Month. Woo woo! So all of the books that I read were written by Hispanic or Latinx authors featuring predominantly Hispanic or Latinx characters. So this is something I really wanted to challenge myself to do. I don't have a lot of Hispanic representation in my books that I own, which seems silly as I am Hispanic myself. Even repping my Selena get up today. May she rest in peace. Love her. So just for clarification, I'm about as Tex-Mex as they come. My family has been in Texas for over 100 years. So we are as much Texan as we were Mexican. Yeah, so it's very much Tex-Mex is its own culture, which we will dive into in one of these books, okay. So I read 6 books for this little mini readathon of mine, and I have put all of my reviews on my Goodreads page, which I have linked down in the description if you'd rather just read those and watch this video. So let's dive on in. Okay. So the only one that I rated 1 star was I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica L. Sanchez. Okay, so this is one of the, and it's a New York Times bestseller, so I do not agree with the New York Times. We are being sold, and I'll talk about this in a second, we're being sold a book where Julia, our main character, has just lost her sister in a tragic accident. After her sister is gone, she starts finding these clues that her sister may not have been the goody-goody that she thought she was. Her sister may have had this secret life that nobody knew about. And Julia's kind of trying to discover it while also trying to discover herself. That is the book I was sold. That is not the book I got. And so I guess that's not the author's fault, as I understand it from watching several booktube videos about this. The author does not write the descriptions or the jacket, inside covers, anything like that. That is solely left up to the publishers. So I feel like they did her a great disservice by marketing it that way. That is not what this book is about. Yes, it is an underlying subplot. However, the main bulk of this book is about her mental health. Also, I found this book incredibly racist, playing into really harmful Hispanic stereotypes that I did not appreciate at all. Every single adult in this girl's life is undocumented. Maybe that's just not my experience. Maybe that is hers in Chicago, but personally, I didn't know anyone undocumented in my childhood. So there you go. All of the Mexican men, other than her, all of the Mexican men living in America in this book come off rapey as heck. And it's just like, well, thank you again for playing into that stereotype. Thank you for playing into that rhetoric. That's not even a stereotype. That's rhetoric that was created by he who shall not be named. This book, if you can't tell, this book really got me fired up. And I'm going to start talking about spoilers. So if you don't want to know spoilers for this book, go ahead and skip until I put the book down. So as I mentioned, this book is primarily about Julia's mental health. She has severe depression, social anxiety, suicidal ideation pretty early on, and an eventual suicide attempt. This book is dark. I found it to be completely joyless. I hated Julia. From about 84 pages in, I almost DNF'd this book. I forced myself to finish it because it was so highly rated. I thought maybe it gets better. But honestly, by 100 pages in, I hated this girl so much that I couldn't empathize with her mental illness. She was a terrible, terrible person. The very first chapter, she's at her sister's funeral and she's making fun of her corpse. while I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can't buy into the idea that her being a terrible person is downstream of her mental illness rather than her mental illness, and I don't buy that her, mental illness is downstream of her being a terrible person. She's just a terrible person. She's incredibly racist against everybody. I mean, I would even say against her own race because she believes all these horrible stereotypes about her own people. She has one Republican teacher who she calls a racist because he has a Ronald Reagan quote on his wall. Yes, he also has a Confederate flag, but I think he was a history teacher, so that might make sense. I'm not sure. I'm not a big fan of Confederate flags, so maybe he is a racist. But this book is so full of anti-white sentiment, like, oh, we automatically just trust white people because they're the ones that call immigration. Well, then why are you sleeping with a white boy? Ah! This book pisses me off so much, and I do not understand how it got so much hype, unless it's just from people who have never met Mexican people in their lives. Or maybe Mexican people in Illinois are different. Somebody tell me, because this was terrible. I mean, she's judgmental as hell. I mean, and what 15-year-old wants to watch a PBS documentary instead of reality TV? Okay, she was unbelievable. Just a caricature of a person. I didn't buy it. And this book dealt with very serious themes and just kind of dropped them. Oh, your mom was raped crossing the border, but we're not going to talk about it. Oh, your best friend's step-boyfriend is rapey as heck and is probably sexually abusing her, but we're not going to talk about it. We're just going to gloss over it. Okay, I'm getting a little too fired up, so I'm going to put this book down. The only nice thing I can say about it is it seems to have handled what it is like to have social anxiety and severe depression well. There was one, beautiful metaphor about when you have depression, reaching for happiness is like reaching for dandelion fluff in the wind and always coming up empty. That was beautiful. I'll give her that one line. But literally this inside the cover, it says, from debut author Erica L. Sanchez comes a laugh out loud and poignant novel about losing a sister and finding yourself. Laugh out loud where? No, this book is not funny. I'm actually really mad at myself that I bought it. Because I'm never going to read it again. It was torture. Maybe if she'd cut out the first 100 pages where Julia is such a terrible person, maybe I could have empathized. Maybe if this book had been marketed properly, I could have given it a better rating because I would have known what I was in for, but I was not the right audience for this book. And that's why I gave it 1 star. So next up is Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. I really enjoyed this book. I won't say it was my favorite book. I gave it 3 stars. I really liked it. It was an interesting concept. So in this book, we follow a character named Alex, also Ale, also Alejandra. She lives in Brooklyn with her mom and her 2 sisters, and they are a family of Hispanic witches, also known as brujas. They don't actually like the term witches, even though bruja translated to English is witch. I'm okay with it. Maintain your cultural identity. That's fine with me. I love the cover art for this. I'm kind of obsessed with it. I think it's beautiful. The reprint version, I don't think the cover art is pretty. I'm really sad they went away from this Dia de los Muertos kind of vibe. So essentially what happens in this book, Alex does not want her magic. She is afraid of her magic, and she's about to come into her magic on a family level. they're holding this ceremony to kind of initiate her into this magical world. She wants nothing to do with it. So she gets the bright idea to essentially banish her magic. This backfires terribly and banishes her whole family to another world, one of the other realms that exists in Cordova's universe. A kind of nether realm. Very Alice in Wonderland meets Pan's Labyrinth kind of deal. So this is her journey to get her family back and kind of understand her own place in the world and in their magical community. So now to get into the nitty-gritty of the book, again, if you don't want spoilers, go ahead and fast forward till I put the book down. So again, I really liked the book. I think there was some excellent world building done. It was very vivid and colorful. My main issues came with some of the characters. Particularly Nova. I never bought him as a love interest. I'm so sick of this trope of, oh, I had a bad childhood, I'm broken, feel sorry for me, and forgive all of the things I do to betray you. No. I'm done. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of reading it. No. Yeah, we're not doing it anymore. So I never bought Nova as a love interest, although Alex seems very focused on him. A lot of thinking about him shirtless, even though at the end of the book she decides she's been in love with her best friend Rishi, who's a girl. No worries about that. I mean, hey, love who you love. But it was so shoehorned. I don't buy that Alex was in love with Rishi the whole time. They did nothing to set that up. Now, they did an excellent job of setting up Rishi loving Alex. It was almost cringy how much Rishi loved Alex. Like, it was like, bam, in your face. Like, oh, she in love with her. Yeah, that's obvious. But Alex never really paid attention to Rishi on more than a friend level for me. She was concerned for her. She was, to me it was only ever platonic, and to say that she was in love with her the whole time, again, felt shoehorned and forced diversity, and I wasn't really happy about it. But again, I didn't think the boy character was a much better love interest. Really, the whole love triangle, even a bisexual love triangle thing, I appreciate them trying to change the trope there, but no, it didn't work for me. I almost wish they left that out and it had just been 3 individual people, going on this quest to save her family. And speaking of characters, the villain, known as the Devourer, a cheesy name, she's set up to be this kind of Bruja gone bad, who is now this, almost immortal force, who's basically trying to become a god and take over this nether realm so she can take over all the other realms. There was no character development there. She wanted power for power's sake, and the fact that she was once human made me feel like there was a bigger backstory that we just never got to, or that maybe got cut out. It never felt wrapped up for me, so that's why I couldn't rate it higher than I did. Yeah, it was kind of just middle of the road for me. I'm not saying it was a bad book. I'm not saying that the writing was bad or anything. I just thought it could have been better. But all in all, not regretting the purchase. The next book, I don't have a physical copy with me as I checked it out from my library, the ebook version. So I will put the cover art here, and that is The Weight of Feathers by Anna Marie McLemore. So this was my first kind of dive into magical realism. I really, really enjoyed it. So I gave this book 4 stars. It was beautiful, honestly. I really enjoyed the magical realism. I was a little skeptical going in, but I really, really enjoyed it. So this book follows 2 traveling show families that are kind of warring. We have the Hispanic Palomas and the French Romani Corbeaus. So the Palomas have scales on their skin, randomly throughout their bodies. They have a mermaid-themed water show that they do for tourists. Then the Corbeaus have feathers growing under their hair, and they have a kind of fairy-themed tightrope show where they wear wings, and their tightropes are strung between trees, and they perform this for tourists as well. So these two families have a blood feud going, which creates a very Romeo and Juliet-esque feel. So essentially our story follows Lace and Cluck. Lace being from the Paloma family, Cluck being from the Corbeau family. These two come together to not only fall in love and get past their family's feud, but also find out the underlying reason for that feud, and it's not what you think it is. It's not what either family thinks it is. So this book was great for me. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, I gave it 4 stars. I really like this book, and as such, I'm not going to spoil it. Again, you can read my full review on Goodreads. Next up is also by Anna Marie McLemore, and that is When the Moon Was Ours. Again, I gave this book 4 stars as well. This book follows Miel and Sam. Miel grows roses from her wrist, and Sam hangs paper moons throughout the town. It's a beautiful, beautiful love story. This also has a lot of LGBT diversity. Miel is Hispanic and Sam is Pakistani Italian, I believe. So a lot of really great diversity here. Really, really thoroughly enjoyed this book. That magical realism setting, which is so beautiful. My only complaint with Anna Marie McLemore, with Anna Marie's style, is that it can be kind of slow. I remember being about 40% in and thinking like the ending was coming because the pacing structure was a little odd for me. But again, it was so beautifully written that I hardly minded that it kept going. Beautiful, beautiful book. Again, a lot of really great representation going on here. Again, I'm not going to spoil it because I did thoroughly enjoy this book. Highly recommend reading it, especially if you are looking for ethnicity diversity and diversity of sexuality. Beautiful read. One more note about this book before I put it back down. Definitely read the dedication all the way through to the author's note. It gives a lot of great perspective on why this book is important and why this book comes off so well. So I've realized that I accidentally skipped one of the books in the order that I was supposed to go. Whoops. So the audiobook that I listened to was The Go-Between by Veronica Chambers. So I rated this a 3.5 in my opinion. The book was fun. It was marketed as a Jane the Virgin type YA read, which I would agree with. It did have that very telenovela style, but I think a lot of people got confused when they said it was like Jane the Virgin. They thought it would be like the character Jane. No. This was the over-the-top drama, poor decisions that comes with a telenovela. So I could very easily see this book becoming a movie or a mini-series. There were so many points when I was listening to the audiobook that I literally laughed out loud. It was a lot of fun. But I think there were some things that could have been handled better, particularly the race, class struggles that were kind of passingly handled in my opinion. So in this book we follow Cami, also Camilla. Her mother is a Mexican telenovela star who ends up taking a job in Los Angeles where she ends up playing a maid, but a maid who's going to become an entrepreneur, so she's going to get her own show eventually. Cami kind of takes this as a chance to start over. So when she goes to a new school and the other rich kids think that she's a poor scholarship student who lives in East LA, she rolls with it. basically lying to her friends and keeping up this charade. A lot of shenanigans ensue. Again, there were just some things that I felt lacked maturity. Not from the characters. I don't expect, 16-year-olds to have a lot of maturity in books. But I felt from the writing, especially if you read the book The Tapestries class, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Again, this was just kind of a fun, light read. I think it made some efforts, it made some strides to get at some deeper issues, but I think they needed to have been a little bit more fleshed out for that to have been handled well, in my opinion, instead of just kind of okay. Still recommend it though as a book. Yeah. And now on to the final book, the one I loved the most, and the only one that I rated 5 stars, and that is The Tequila Worm by Viola Canales. I love this book so much. Look at it. It's teeny tiny, but I loved it. I loved it. Now, I might be a little biased because this book takes place in Texas. And as you know, I've talked about it many times, I am Texan. I talked about it at the beginning of this video. I am Tex-Mex, and this book is the epitome of the best slice of life of the Tex-Mex culture and lifestyle. Yes, everything about this book was just a yes for me. It was filled with such beautiful imagery and these words that were so evocative of what it is to grow up and be Hispanic in Texas. I mean, it talked about Whataburger, it talked about cheese enchiladas. That is about as Tex-Mex as you get. We love our Whataburger. We do. We love Whataburger. Oh, I love this book. It was filled with so many great life lessons about being it's called comadre in Spanish, but basically you can kind of translate that into being a good friend, a support network. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful concept that lives in the Hispanic culture, especially from my own perspective in the Tex-Mex culture. Again, just beautiful, beautiful book. It's teeny tiny. Please, please, please read it because I feel like this is the most honest book I've read on what it's like to be brown in Texas. It was great. You get your Easter cascarones, your Dia de los Muertos, and it all revolves around a character named Sophia who grows up in a working class family in McAllen, Texas, which is in the Rio Grande Valley, and then she is offered a scholarship to a very prestigious boarding school in Austin. This book was so great. There are so many characters that if you grew up Hispanic, particularly in Texas, you can find those characters in your own life. Like, this is the attitudes that you would get from people. And I could gush about this book forever. I want every person in my life to read it because it was so honest and beautiful. I had a smile on my face the whole way through. It was just beautiful, and what it is to be family, what it is to be a good friend, what it is to succeed and thrive, just everything. Loved this book. Literally now one of my favorite books. Oh, and the cover is just so pretty too. Oh. Okay, so that was my wrap up of Hispanic Heritage Month reads. I really, really enjoyed this. Again, I didn't have a lot by Hispanic authors. I think this really showed me what I was missing out on, particularly the Tequila Worm. That one, I could cry just talking about it. It makes me so happy. Thank you so much for watching my video and listening to me talk about these books. If you have any recommendations on other books I should be reading by Hispanic or Latinx authors, please let me know down in the comments. This was a great experience for me, and I would love to continue the experience. If you like this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up button so that way I know you're enjoying what I'm putting out there. I'm really, really enjoying this. It's really pushing me to read more and read outside of my comfort zone. I feel very, very blessed to be here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Again, everyone. I am Holly, and